Welcome back. This lesson and the next one are going to be pretty exciting, so let's get to work. Design is iterative. Most of the time these iterations will be incremental. You will just be tweaking, modifying, adding or removing things to your existing design as you learn more and more about how your users are using your product. But you might also find yourself having to redesign your app because you pivoted, for instance, and in this case you'll have to start all over again from the start because you're building a different product. Or it can be because the standards of the medium you're designing for are changing. And this is what's happening with Apple's iOS 7, for instance. So let's give our app lifting so it fits well in the iOS 7 environment. The great news with iOS 7 is that there is much less emphasis on using visual effects to make UI elements look real. This means that we won't waste time on finding the perfect gradient or shadow, and that content will hold a more important place. As Apple puts it, we'll focus on the content and let the UI play a supporting role. You will see that on top of dropping shadows and borders, we'll have a greater use of transparency and white space. Everything will be simpler, and this is all for the best. I don't think that iOS 7 is supported on non-Retina display devices like the iPhone 3 or 3GS. Therefore, this time we'll be designing 2x directly. And this is kind of cool because we'll have more precision. So open the iPhone 5 frame template 2x in the folder of this lesson. It looks like this. It's the same template as the one we used for the iOS 6 version, but twice bigger. If you look at the dimensions of the frame, we have a width of 640 instead of 320. There are three ways to design an iOS app. The standard way, where the app contains only standard uncustomized UI elements. Custom, where the app presents a completely custom UI that doesn't include any UI kit elements. And hybrid, when the app contains a mix of standard and custom elements. With the first version of our design, we had a custom approach, but we ended up creating a hybrid app because we recreated elements that were similar to standard iOS UI elements. This time, we'll have a hybrid approach right from the start. We'll begin with standard UI elements and we'll customize them when we need to. The main upside of this approach is that it's faster, but it also pushes you to ask yourself why you're spending time redesigning standard elements. Because if your only reason is to make them look better, well, there might be chances that you shouldn't do it. The good reason for redesigning UI elements is to facilitate the task people want to perform and enhance their experience. But of course, I'm not talking about customizing standard elements, like changing the color to make them consistent with your branding. This is obviously something you should do. Open the iOS 7 UI kit and the style guide in this lesson folder because we'll need them. What we'll do is we'll start by copying this top bar. Make sure you select the whole folder, copy it and paste it in there. Make sure you position it correctly. You should have 0 in the X and the Y field. Now do the same thing with this navigation bar. Make sure it's correctly aligned. Should have 40 in the Y field because the status bar has a height of 40 pixels. And finally we'll do the same thing with the button tab bar. You can get rid of everything that's in there, except this rectangle, of course. And same thing for the navigation bar, but you can keep the title. Okay. This time I want to show you a not completely necessary step, but a very practical one if you want to make sure that your visual hierarchy is well balanced, and if you want to make sure that everything is well aligned in your design. So let's check our mockups. And what we'll do is that we'll start by drawing geometrical shapes to represent the different elements of our design and to align them correctly. Let's do that. We have refresh button over here. So we'll draw a square of 50 by 50. And we want it to be aligned with this icon, which is 13 pixels away from the border. So we want it to be 13 pixels away from the border too. Now we need a user profile picture and a username. We put all that in a rectangle. Give it a height of 94 pixels. Make sure it is just below the navigation bar. Okay. Let's draw a square for the picture. Would be 68 by 68. Change the color to something a bit darker. 68 because it allows us to have a 13 pixels margin at the top, at the bottom, and on the left. We want some text as well, so we'll draw a rectangle. The width doesn't really matter, but we'll give it a height of 34 pixels. So we can have a margin of 30 pixels at the top and at the bottom, and we'll put it 13 pixels away from the picture. Like this. Let's make the name a bit bigger. Like that. Okay. Next we have our photo. This will take up the whole screen. So it should be 640 by 640. Change the color to something darker again. Make sure it is well aligned just below this rectangle. Okay. What's next? Likes, comments, and then buttons. So we'll draw a first rectangle with a height of 34 pixels, just like the text over here. We put it 13 pixels away from the edge of the screen and 13 pixels below the picture. And in this we need an icon, a heart icon, and some text. So for the icon we'll draw a square of 26 by 26. Change the color so you can see it. Make sure it's well aligned on the left with this shape and that it's aligned in the center, so we still have a margin of 13 pixels over here. And we'll need some text, and for that we'll take up the whole space. So 34 pixels for the height. Like this, and we'll make sure it is 13 pixels away from the icon. Okay, let's do the same thing for the comments. We have 9 pixels between the two. We need 4 more, like this. But this time might be some more text. So we'll make the shape below a bit bigger, and we copy paste the text. Like this. And finally we need to take care of the buttons. So let's start by the background of the button. We'll draw a rectangle with a height of 52 pixels. Line it. We have 13 pixels between these two shapes, so we're good. The width doesn't really matter for now because we don't know how big the text will be exactly, but we can already position the icon. So copy the icon from here, paste it here. Yeah, make sure the padding is 13 pixels at the top, on the left, and at the bottom. Then add some text. Okay, and duplicate this button for the comment button. Make it just a bit bigger, maybe 10 pixels bigger because this word is longer, maybe 20. And same thing for the comment text. And we're good. Last shape we need to draw is for the tabs, and especially the central tab. So let's draw a square. This has a width of 640, so we need to divide 640 by 5 because there are 5 tabs, and the height is 98 pixels. We'll position it just in the middle, so select these two shapes and align them like this, and align at the bottom too. Okay. This gives us a good overview of the visual hierarchy of our design, and you'll see that it would be pretty handy when we are trying to position the different elements. Let's now fill the blanks and give life to this design. Zoom in to see the status bar and the top bar. What we'll do is we'll merge the background of the status bar and of the navigation bar, so select these two and click Union. Let's now change the color of this element. We'll use the color that we have in our style guide, this one. So what we could do is copy paste this hex code, but we want to have a top bar and a status bar that are a bit transparent. So what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this shape like this, put it below, zoom a bit, and add a transparency of 80%. When we do that, the color looks a bit dull, so we'll adjust the saturation, brightness, and maybe hue to see how we can make it look like this color while being semi-transparent. So saturation, maybe a little less brightness. Let's see if we can play around with the hue. Actually, it looks fine like this. Okay, so what we just did here is compensate the fact that it became transparent by playing around with the saturation and the brightness. Now what we can do is copy this style and go back to our sketch file to apply it to our top bar. Now select this shape and apply the style. We also want to have a blur, but not the Gaussian one, the background, which is the iOS 7 blur. 25 pixels. And what we can do here is, if we need this tile again, we can just add it here so it can be reused later. Now let's change everything that's inside the status bar. We want it to be white. Same thing for this shape. And open the signal folder and only select these 4 ovals because this one is not plain. Change the color to white. Select this one and select the border color, not the fill color, and change it to white. Let's now add our refresh icon. We can find it in the template. Select the refresh icon in the template, copy it, and go back to your sketch file and paste it. We'll make it a bit bigger with a width of 30 and a height of 35. Make sure it is well centered in the square. And we can get rid of the square now, we don't need it anymore. And we change the color of this to white. Let's put the shape inside the navigation bar. We'll just change the name of this top bar because this is what I call the status bar. And it's called the status bar, and we call that the top bar. This one, the bottom bar. This is more simple. Okay, let's now take care of the title. We want it to be white. And in the style guide, check what typeface is used. Billabong. So let's go back to our sketch file and change this to Billabong. We'll also change the text to InSample. This is a bit small, so let's make it a bit bigger. 72 should be enough. And position it. Okay. Let's take care of the bottom bar now. We'll change the background a little bit with opacity of 50% and background blur to 25 pixels. We'll use this rectangle as our central tab, make sure it's well aligned. Yes. And we can just reuse the style we used for the top bar, like this. It's very simple. And we'll rename this central tab and put it in the bottom bar. Let's now take care of the icons, but before we do that, we're going to need some space, so we're going to group these and these two. And we'll hide this group for now. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the icons we've designed before in our old design, and we're gonna give them a lifting. So you can find the old design in this course folder. In the old design, go to navigation, bottom bar, home tab, and copy the home icon. Now paste it in this design. Don't forget to preview your designs on the device you're designing for. If you're using Sketch Mirror, I even suggest that you keep it connected all the time. Okay, so let's take care of this icon now. We get rid of these. Don't need these effects. We'll go to Edit, Path. Let's select the whole house. Edit, Path, Flatten to make sure that nothing happens when we resize the home. We'll give it a width of 50 pixels. Actually, make sure that the lock is locked so it is resized in the correct way. That's good. Now we'll get rid of this fill and use borders inside. We want the borders to be a bit bigger, maybe 2 pixels, and choose the center. Okay, so we have to adjust the door over here, make it a bit bigger. Oh, but see, there is not any Boolean operation selected over here. So what we need to do is make sure it's above this one and select not union but subtract, just like this. Okay, let's do the same thing with the other icons. You can select all these except the camera, because the camera will be a bit different. So copy this and paste them over here. Make sure you get rid of this effect. That's a relief. We'll give this one a width and a height of 52 pixels. This one a width of almost twice the size, maybe a bit less. Yeah, 52 should be enough. Don't want them to be as big as they were in the previous design. And profile, well, actually this one will be twice bigger. Yeah. We'll do the same thing, so we'll get rid of the fill, but we'll use a border, 2 pixels, and outside, not outside, sorry, center. Yeah. Okay, now we're going to change the color of the borders. Select them all. Go in the border color over here and check what color you should use in the style guide. We're going to use that one, so it's 737373. We copy it and paste it here like this. Now let's put these icons where they belong. In order to do that, we'll use this tab to help us position the different icons. But first we need to duplicate it, so Alt Alt and drag it outside of the bottom bar. Then move it until it touches the edge of the screen on the left. Select the house and put it on top of this tab, just in the center, like this. Now move this tab. You can add 128 because it is the width of the tab, like this. You can make sure it is just next to the other tab. Select this icon and put it in the center, like this. Now move this tab again. Like this. Do the same thing with the notification, and if you're not sure if it's well aligned, then select the tab and the icon, click the middle and center alignment, and finally we'll do that one more time for the last icon. Good. We don't need this one anymore, so we can delete it. Now let's take care of the last icon, the camera icon. We're gonna copy paste the camera from the old design in the new design. This will be helpful as a guide, but I think the best way to redesign this icon is to start from scratch. So draw a square, 50 by 50, with a radius of 4 to have rounded angles. Then we're going to need another rectangle. Let's see, let's change the color. and change the width to 44. This will allow us to have 3 pixels padding and a height of 25, and make sure you have a 3 pixels padding at the bottom too. So 3 pixels on the left, on the right, and at the bottom. We want it to have rounded angles at the bottom but not at the top, so we'll do exactly the same thing as we did last time. We'll have a radius of 2, then select these 2 vector points and choose the straight mode. Now subtract. We're going to need a circle over here. 28 should be enough. Make sure it is well aligned in the center and merge it with the other shape. Another circle. Of 22 by 22. Line it in the center like this and subtract it from the other shape. And finally we're going to need another small square. I think 10 by 10 should be enough, but let's have a look. We want a 3 pixels padding, or margin in this case, and we'll change the radius to 1 and subtract it. Okay, we can get rid of this one and position this one in the center of the central tab. Let's select the tab and the icon to make sure they're well centered, and change the color of this icon to white. Last thing we need to do is to change the color of this icon to indicate that we are currently on this home page. So we'll change the color of the border, go to the style guide to select the color, select this blue square and copy its hex code. Go back to the sketch file and change the color to the one that you have copied, so paste it here. We can add the color over here so we can use it later. Okay, let's now put this in a group. We'll call it icons, and we'll put it in the bottom bar like this. And we're done for now. In the next video we'll take care of the content of the screen. See you soon.